In a world where legends rise and fall with every punch, where the roar of the crowd fades, but the stories live on. This is where those stories are told. This is Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. From the blood, the sweat, and the glory, to the controversies, comebacks, and knockouts, we go behind the ring, no fluff, no hype, and definitely no BS. Just the truth behind the fight game. And we've been doing it for over 2 decades. A podcast pioneer, now a Hall of Famer.
Great. What's that ego gonna be like?
And next, the comeback kid.
Wait, isn't he like 90 or something?
Shut up, he'll hear you. The reigning, defending, undisputed, heavyweight champion of boxing broadcasting. It's Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. And it's on now.
And we're coming to you live from the Billy C Studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calogero, and it's time for the Billy C Show. Good morning, good day, good evening. Whenever you're watching, whenever you're listening, I hope you're doing okay today. Today's show is being brought to us by my book. Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet, is available right now where all good books are sold, and you can get a copy of it right now while you're watching or listening to this very show. Just go to Amazon. Hey, you could also go to BillyCBoxing.com. I believe there's still a special. It was supposed to end, but I believe the publisher has a special. It's like half price or something. Check it out. It's right on the front page. All right. We got busy shows for you. We have a busy show for you today. First and foremost, I'm going to get you all caught up on the latest boxing news and rumors, including my thoughts on Moses Itauma being gifted a world title shot. I'll get to that a little bit later. The continuing saga of who the current WBC World Cruiserweight Champion, Noel Mikaelian, will fight next. More lawsuits going up against Floyd Mayweather and his cohorts, I should add. I got a couple of great emails. Plus, don't forget, if you're watching or listening live, come on into the chat room, and any comments, thoughts, concerns you may have. If I see it, I'll post it and respond to it live as we're doing the show. I also am breaking down. It's kind of for big name fights this weekend, it's kind of a slow weekend. But there are some pretty damn good competitive fights that I'm going to be breaking down and giving you my predictions on a little bit later. But first, let's talk about the fights that took place this past weekend. First and foremost, William Zepeda won a unanimous decision over Lamont Roach in a pretty entertaining fight. I thought it was. It was went the distance. Zepeda improves, the scores were 78-74, 77-75, 77-75. So basically, 2 judges had it at 77-75, and the third had it 78-74. That was after the 8 rounds. Anyway, because it was open scoring for the WBC. At the end of the day, 118-110 and 117-111 twice, giving Zepeda the victory. He improves to 34-1 with 27 of his wins coming by knockout. His only loss came at the hands of Shakur Stevenson. And Lamont Roach suffers the second defeat of his career. He drops to 25 wins, 2 losses, and 3 draws, with 10 of his wins coming by knockout. The fight, I thought, was pretty entertaining. I thought it was one-sided. You know, normally I really enjoy the A-team of the zone, you know. But Chris Mannix, who, you know, does he have a personality? I don't know. You never see him really doing much, but all stone-faced serious. And he scores. He's the unofficial scorer for them. And give a shout-out to my man, Coach, who just popped into the chat room. He gave the first 2 rounds to Roach. Normally I don't remember what these guys score, but I found that I couldn't see it, and then he towards the end, I gave Roach a round, but this was a dominating fight. One other thing I want to mention about this fight. Now, I was talking to my man Augie the other day, and we were talking about this fight, and I said, "Hey, do you know who the referee was? Do you remember who the referee was?" And he says, "No, I can't remember." And that, ladies and gentlemen, and boys and girls, and children of all ages, here's the deal. You know what that means? You know what I always say? If you've listened to this show for any length of time, you know what I say. If you can't remember who the referee was, what does that mean? It means he did a great job. And let me tell you, the referee was Harvey Dock. And in my opinion, Harvey Dock is the best referee in professional boxing today. There is no question about it. The man, first of all, the man is in shape. He gets in the ring. He can move around the ring fluidly. He's not one of these fat, no disrespect to the fat people. I'm a chubby too. But when these fat referees look like they can't, I remember Ron Lipton telling me, complaining about some of these referees that are so out of shape that can hardly climb into the ring, and they're expected to make sure to ensure the safety of the fighters and to make sure there's no, giving them the business below the belt or something like that. He's got to be able to move around the ring. Well, Harvey Dock floats around the ring. He's in great shape, and here's the deal. He doesn't try to get in the camera shot. He stays away. He lets the fighters fight. If he's got to get in there, he darts in, does his job, gets out. He's the best referee in boxing today, and he was certainly a breath of fresh air, considering that sad embarrassment of a referee at Madison Square Garden. The New York State Athletic Commission should be ashamed that they even assigned this cat for the Berlanga and Butler fight at Madison Square Garden. In case y'all forgot, this dude stops the fight and tackles, first runs and grabs and tackles Stephen Butler to the floor. And then Berlanga, I lost all respect. He's standing over him like he wants to punch him again through the, heavy set monster referee who was laying on top of Butler. I mean, it was an embarrassment. And watching Harvey Dock in the Opetaia Roach fight was a breath of fresh air. Breath of fresh air. That's how you referee a fight, boys and girls. 100%. Kudos to you, Harvey. We got to get you back on. In another fight on that card, the IBF lightweight champion, Ray Mikaelian, he improved to 25-0 with 17 knockouts when he pretty much dominated Robson Conseo. 109, 119, 109 twice, 118, 110. Conseo drops to 21 wins, 4 losses, and a draw, with 10 of his wins coming by knockout. And truthfully, in my opinion, the referees gave some rounds to Conseo. I don't know, maybe because they felt sorry for him. He looked like he shouldn't have belonged in the ring. Okay. Anyway, shout out to the drunken Irishman who just popped into the chat room. And this is right up your alley, my man, because I'm going to talk about a fight that I absolutely loved. It was from Ireland, and we got some other fights from Ireland this week. When is somebody going to bring me over to Ireland so I can join the festivities? I mean, I would love it over there. If you've never watched these fights, I've never been there, first of all, so I've never been to a live event anywhere in the UK. But Ireland seems to be the place, and this one took place in Dublin. It was the main event. Pierce O'Leary was defending his belt against Mark Chamberlain. Now, if you recall, Mark Chamberlain was Turki Al-Rashid's favorite fighter, if you remember. And Mark Chamberlain was the underdog in this fight. And what a fight. I mean, look, if you like watching action-packed fights, and you didn't see this one, punch it up. Because several of the websites didn't even report on this fight. Anyway, O'Leary was down in the second round. Nonstop action back and forth. He went down again in the third. Then Chamberlain was dropped with this vicious body shot. If it wasn't towards the end, like the last few seconds of the round, I doubt he would have been able to get up. He somehow crawled up and then survived the round. And then, by the way, O'Leary, after that third round knockdown, his nose was so busted up. It reminded me of Tim Tszyu and Fundora fight. I mean, he was bleeding all over the place. But that didn't deter this guy. I mean, he was like a man possessed. And then Chamberlain was fighting the same way, back and forth. It was great. And then, it looked like, Chamberlain was leading the fight. And then all of a sudden, it looked like O'Leary, got going, I mean, and he was really, after that body shot that knocked Chamberlain down, it seemed to, energize O'Leary, and he came back and was, in my opinion, he was dominating the fight. I was just waiting for him to stop Chamberlain. And then all of a sudden Chamberlain lands this shot on O'Leary that stunned him, but he followed up with like 3 or 4 more solid punches. The last one landing when O'Leary was kind of out on his feet, and he went down like a ton of what, and was counted out. What a fight. I mean, O'Leary, that was the first loss of his career. He drops to 19-1 with 11 knockouts, and Chamberlain improves to 18-1 with 13 knockouts. And Frank Warren, who's the promoter, said, yes, boys and girls, there was a rematch clause in this fight. So hopefully these guys are going to run it back. And next time I will make sure that, I will definitely make sure I remind you guys about these two. And it got me thinking about a couple of things, this fight, this card, You guys know I love watching these cards. And to tell you the truth, if you're a boxing fan, you got to make sure that you watch these fights, because these are the fights where you're going to learn who these fighters are. If you're just waiting for the so-called title fights, at half the time you don't even know who those guys are anyway. That's why I love watching these guys, because you get to see who's going to get the shots and who's legit and who's not. It also got me thinking about, off the top of my head, about nonstop fighters, because, even though he came up short in this fight, this guy Pierce O'Leary is a nonstop fighter. I mean, he just doesn't stop. Williams Zapata, same thing. In his fight this past weekend, he did not stop throwing punches. You wonder how he gets the fuel. I mean, I love it. Nick Ball, another Brit, another UK fighter. Never watched him? You're missing another guy that just never stops. And then you got to give Bam Rodriguez. He's the same way, never stops. I love watching these fights. They're so entertaining. And, my newest guy I'm keeping an eye on is this young Japanese fighter, Tsumi. He never stopped. And he seemed, not only was he action-packed, but he seemed so like the thing about Terrence Crawford that I love so much was that he had that killer instinct. So you could see him, setting up his opponents, jabbing, moving, doing all those good things. And then all of a sudden, like a light switch, he switches on that mean streak and he goes in for the kill. Well, this kid, Tsumi, he seems to do that from the opening bell. I mean, he just goes right in, but he's fluid and he's talented. He's not just going in there throwing wild punches. And look, I love Nick Ball. I love him, but he throws some wild punches. Tsumi did not. Those are fighters to keep an eye on. I'm sure there's a lot of others. Those are the ones that came to my head. But the other thing I wanted to point out, I made a note for myself, because with the zone, sometimes you get to watch fights. The first ones, like in this case, was in the UK, was in Dublin, so you get to watch them early. That's why I love them, because I'm in my feety pajamas by 6 o'clock at night, 7 o'clock. But the truth of the matter is I always notice the fans, and I'm looking at the fans because I want to see, first of all, how crowded it is, right? Are the fans excited? Are they into the fight? and what types of fans are there. And the one thing that I always say about the UK fighters is that the UK fans is that there's always a diversified crowd. I see kids, young kids that are probably fighting in the amateurs or something. I say young, they're not pushing strollers, but kids maybe 10 to 18, whatever, that age, maybe even a little younger, maybe 7, 8 years old. But they're there. Young boys, young girls, girls, females, women. How much for the women? They're there. Whether they're there with guys or I've seen gaggles of women there, all different ages. Guys, with them, all different ages. And they're having fun. Granted, they drink all that beer, but they're having fun and they're cheering and they know what's going on in the fights, and they follow their fans, and they don't bail on their fans after their fighters. The fans don't bail on their fighters after a potential loss or a bad showing or something. Then you look at the U.S. boxing fans, and sometimes they cheer. They typically cheer for their guy, and if their guy isn't doing well, they're pretty much sitting on their hands, and I don't know what else they're doing, but they're not cheering, they're not clapping, they're not trying to get their fighters going. The other thing is, you see, it's a fashion show in the United States. You watch a top fight, and it's a fashion show. The way everybody dresses, it's like they're hoping they get their time on TV. It's been like that for years. You go back to the great Ali Frazier fights, and you saw some pretty pimped out people. But that's what they do, and the crowds, they're not as diversified as the Brits. They're just not. Very rarely do I see kids. I see kids that may be children of fighters that are fighting or something like that, but not kids. It could be because the fights are on so much later, but they're on late too over on the other side of the pond. It's just early for us. But anyway, big difference in the fans. All right, a couple of major topics here that I want to like Coach is saying, imagine a gym teacher taking a class to the fights as a class trip. That's almost how it looks in the UK, like a boxing club. And some of the smaller venues where I've seen some of the club shows. This was a bigger event in Dublin, but in the UK, some of the smaller clubs, that's exactly what you're seeing. So Coach is hitting that right on the head. All right. Some news in the sport of boxing. Let's talk about the heavyweights. We all love the heavyweight division, right? Well, it was announced that the Moses Itauma Filip Hrgovic fight is now for the vacant IBF World Heavyweight title. Frank Sanchez was supposed to be it. He was the mandatory, but a few greenbacks made him sign that he would step aside and let Moses Itauma and Filip Hrgovic fight for the belt on the condition that he gets the winner, no matter who it is, in the next fight. So he makes some extra coin, and he's still going to fight. Personally, I think Frank Sanchez shouldn't have done that. I think he should have fought for the title, because despite him saying how old he is, he looked like he was pushing 45 in his last fight. So the longer he waits, the less chances he's going to have. And he looked really good. I thought in his last fight, he looked really good, and he should have kept the momentum going. I think it's going to prove to be a mistake, but that's just my opinion. Now let's talk about the fight, Moses Itauma and Filip Hrgovic. First and foremost, Hrgovic, I don't have any problem with him potentially fighting for this fight. I really don't. He's paid his dues. He's fought the big fights. He's only got the one loss. I'm not going to criticize the IBF for having his name pop up as a potential candidate to be one of the participants to fight for the vacant belt. I do, however, have an issue with Moses Itauma. Now, before I get into that, because I know I know there's so many Itauma fans out there. You know, look, I've talked about this many times. I like Moses Itauma. Everything I see in Moses Itauma is enlightening. It's something that I'm looking forward to. He possesses everything you want to see in a heavyweight, especially at that size. You know, he's fluid. He's got hand speed. He's obviously got pop. He can move around the ring. Don't know much about his defense because he really hasn't had to display it. But here's the thing. You know, at 14-0, that's it, 14 fights. He's only fought 2 that were against what we're going to say are decent opposition. At least they were known. His first victory was a total, the first one I'm talking about, is a total blowout over Dillian White, which was, listen, I've said it before and I'm going to say it again. It smelled fishy to me. You know, Dillian White was in there with some top-notch power punchers that he did okay with. He came up on the short end, but, you know, he's a durable fighter. And for Moses Itauma to come in and blow him away the way it happened, and of course he complained it was stopped too short. I'm never going to blame a referee for stopping a fight too soon, only because it's safer to stop it too soon for the fighter than too late. But I always thought that fight was fishy. I'm sorry, it smelled fishy. Then the next known name on Itauma's record is Jermaine Franklin. Now, Jermaine Franklin, no disrespect to Jermaine Franklin, but he went into that fight with 2 losses, if I recall correctly, and those 2 losses were against decent opposition. Every other, good, better than decent, okay? But every other win he had, 26 wins or something like that, if I recall correctly, was against no-name guys. Yes, he was hard to stop. Yes, he went the distance with some top fighters, a couple. He lost the fight, but he went the distance, so he gets labeled as a durable fighter. But how good really is he? Okay, so he's a durable punching bag for the higher-end guys, and he beats the lower-end guys like he's supposed to. So what does that tell us about Itauma? It does not knock his skill set. It does not knock it, because we see it, okay? We see that it's there. But in boxing, I think the biggest thing that's missing is the fact that fighter managers and promoters don't give a fighter enough time to develop. And quite frankly, in today's landscape of boxing, you really don't have to. And let me explain why. Let's take a look. The truth of the matter is if you ask somebody, you can't ask anybody because most people won't know the answer anyway. But if you ask a boxing fan who the world heavyweight champion is, I would be shocked if any other name other than Alexander Usyk or even just Usyk came out of their mouth, because everybody still considers Usyk the world heavyweight champion. Now, he does still possess the ring belt, which is the linear championship, it used to be anyway, to the heavyweight division. So the ring belt has a little juice. So he still is technically a champion. But the alphabet belts, the WBC, the WBO, the IBF, and the WBA, I say it in that reason, boys and girls. I say it in that order for a reason. That's the order in which the validity of those belts mean to me, in my opinion. I believe WBC, WBO, IBF, WBA has the least credibility in my opinion. But let's look at the heavyweight division, the landscape right now. We're just talking about Moses Itauma and Filip Hrgovic. They're fighting for the vacant IBF title, the same 4 titles that Usyk gave up, right? So that one's vacant. So we know. The WBC champion, in case y'all forgot, it's Ajit KBL. Now, he was the interim champion, and he was elevated to the champion after Usyk vacated the belt. So he didn't win the belt in the ring. But nonetheless, he's classified. If you look it up, he is currently the WBC World Heavyweight Champion. And the truth of the matter is I do believe he's the best of this crop. That's not named Usyk. So when you look at the WBC champ, although he didn't win it in the ring, I do believe that he at least deserved a shot at the belt. So it's going to be interesting to see who he fights next. Now, the WBO World Heavyweight Champion, that's Daniel Dubois. Now, in case you forgot, Daniel Dubois was a previous champion, and he lost his belt to Usyk, and so he regained this belt. Now, how did he get it? Well, he fought and beat Wardley, and Fabio Wardley and him are going to be having a rematch. There was a rematch clause, and Wardley, who was the champion, is invoking it. So that's taking place later this year. But Wardley inherited the belt because of the, giving up the belt from Usyk. And he was even saying how important the Dubois fight was to him because he didn't feel he really was the champion because he didn't earn it in the ring. So I always gave him credit for that. But Dubois won. So you got Daniel Dubois is the WBO champ. Now, in case you're wondering if the WBA has a world champion, the answer is yes. And you know who it is? It's Murat Gaziov. Now, if you forgot how that happened, if you follow the bouncing ball, the WBA, and this was their regular heavyweight champion, was floating around for a while through some obscure reasons. That it stayed with a guy who didn't fight for a while, and he gets in the ring and he loses the fight to what the heck? I'm going blank here. The Russian fighter. In any event, Coach, help me out here. In any event, he got the Pulov. That's who it is, Pulov. And Pulov got the belt. He won the fight. And he defended it against Murat Gaziov. Gaziov beats him. And now he's the WBA champ. He had a successful defense recently. But yes, he is actually a world champion. So when you look at that and you say, okay, well, at least Murat Gaziov, he's an experienced fighter. I don't believe he's a world heavyweight champion caliber, but he was a cruiserweight champ, and he won the belt in the ring. AJ KBL, and he's the WBA. AJ KBL, the WBC, he deserved a shot at the title. I do believe he's the best heavyweight out there, not named Usyk, but he didn't earn it in the ring. But I'm okay with him wearing that belt. I think he deserves it. And Daniel Dubois is the WBO champ. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Hrgovic and Itauma. Personally, I think that the Hrgovic-Itauma fight, I think Filip Hrgovic was going to give Itauma the biggest test of his career. So it's going to be interesting to see. But I also believe that, Filip Hrgovic is the perfect opponent for Moses Itauma. He's not fleet of foot. He's powerful, but he's got to stand right in front of you, and you got to let him keep, you in front of him, and so he can land a punch. But I think Moses Itauma, with his footwork and his hand speed, should win this fight. But I think he's going to have to win it in the later rounds. And if I'm Hrgovic, my plan would be to try to get Itauma in the later rounds, and I would try to move around the ring, see if Itauma chases him, which would be an interesting thing to see if he's smart enough to cut the ring off, or if he's going to chase him around looking for the knockout. My hang-up is I just don't think Itauma is that guy that should be fighting for the belt now. I think he should have, assuming he gets past Hrgovic, I think after he beat Hrgovic, I thought a fight between him and Sanchez would have been really good. it looks like that could be possible now. It's just that he would be going in as the champ, and I don't think it's fair to Sanchez. But in any event, that's the heavyweight. Then we got a saga going on. You know, the saga. Which one, you're asking? Well, it's the saga of Noel Mikaelian. And Noel Mikaelian, who's Noel Mikaelian? Oh, well, he's the WBC World Cruiserweight Champion. And he is promoted by Don King Promotions. And there's been an ongoing question of who is Noel Mikaelian going to fight. He needs to defend his belt. Ryan Rizicki was a guy that was supposed to, and then eventually fought. That was supposed to be a killer fight. It was anticlimactic nonetheless. But Mikaelian had an offer for Jay Opetaia not too long ago. And inside sources basically say that the sides couldn't come to a financial agreement. That's Opetaia's side, which is Zuffa, and Mikaelian's side, which is Don King. Then it came out that David Benavidez wanted to unify and get the WBC belt, so it made sense for him to fight Noel Mikaelian and then fight for a unification. And quite honestly, if you recall a step before that, Jay Opetaia is the guy who David Benavidez is kind of running from. That's the fight everybody wants to see. So there's a little added drama there. And I believe, in my opinion, David Benavidez thought that he could beat Noel Mikaelian easier than he could potentially beat Jay Opetaia. So that made sense that fight was going to take place, and they were talking about potentially having that fight in December. It was dragging on, and meanwhile, Noel Mikaelian, he's not fighting anybody. So everybody's waiting around. There was an injury at some point. And then all of a sudden, it's announced today that Jay Opetaia is signed to fight Noel Mikaelian September 12th on the undercard of my man Ryan Garcia taking on my other man, because I like Connor Ben. I like Connor Ben. I was going to say Connor Ben just as much, right? So on the Garcia Ben undercard, to have Jay Opetaia and Noel Mikaelian fight for the ring belt, the Zuffa belt, and the WBC belt, because Mikaelian has already admitted that he's going to fight him. His team announced it today, and it's up on BoxRec. Here's the problem, boys and girls. You got Noel Mikaelian, who is signed with Don King. Don King was quoted today saying that he wants the Benavidez fight and that he hopes that Noel Mikaelian is going to do the right thing and honor his deal with Don King. Now, I'm sitting here wondering, no, wait a minute. We all know you can't, if there's a contractual deal between a fighter and a promoter, or a fighter and a manager, another fighter's, or it doesn't have to be another fighter's, another promoter or manager can't negotiate with them except through their management or their promoter and manager, because there's other managers involved, and they're speaking that they're saying, yeah, we want what's best. We want to get as much money as we can, and this is the fight. I don't know how it's going to unfold, boys and girls, because truthfully, if Don King does have a signed deal with Mikaelian, I don't care what kind of deal Mikaelian allegedly signed with Zuffa to fight on this card against Jay Opetaia. I think that the fight could be blocked legally. unless there's something else that's going on that we don't know. So it's going to be interesting to see, because let's face it, it's a month away. It's a month away, a month and a few days away. September 12th. So I think. Listen, I talked about this just before the show. Okay, here's if this happens, if the Mikaelian fight with Jay Opetaia happens, and it's on a Zuffa card, which it should be, and the Zuffa title is on the line, which Jay Opetaia has, and the ring belt is on the line, which Jay Opetaia has, and the WBC belt, which Noel Mikaelian has, is on the line. That tells us, and keep in mind, the Ryan Garcia-Conor Ben fight is for Ryan Garcia's WBC belt. And that fight is for the belt. So all of a sudden, for their belt, it's being sanctioned, right? So all of a sudden, I'm starting to say, well, all these sanctioning bodies, they're all teaming up. They're running in fear from Zuffa Boxing, right? But it sounds like they're willing to just close their eyes as long as they get their sanctioning fees, because they're still getting sanctioning fees. This is the way it could work. This is the way everybody could still run around with the little trinket belt and say, I'm a champion. We just talked about the heavyweight and how effed up that division is all of a sudden. It was pretty cool when there's one champion and we say Usyk, hell, he's defending his title. Oh, so-and-so, he didn't beat him. Okay, who's next going to challenge for the world heavy? I mean, that's the way it was, and it makes it so much easier as a fan. And all the sanctioning bodies were getting their cut because it was a unified belt. Everybody was happy. And then in this case, Usyk, relinquished all of the belts. Sometimes they're supposed to fight a mandatory for one belt, and they're fighting somebody else for another belt, and they strip them, and that's how they become vacant. But nonetheless, it's a joke. So if this fight does happen, which it's going to be interesting to see, because it's going to show me that either there wasn't an ironclad contract along the way, or there's some cash being passed around behind the scenes, because that's the only way. And if it does happen, it's going to really show me, and it should be showing you, that this is going to work. Zuffa is just going to be, allegedly they'll be the ones that outbid some of the fights and give the fighters more money. And, all I can think of is what Shakur Stevenson said. And he said, I signed with, what did he say? I forgot. I think he said with unbelievable amount of money or freakish amount of money or something like that, or the money was unbelievable. Yeah, if the money's unbelievable, if the money's outrageous, fighters are going to go there, and then it's going to become a bidding game. So all the naysayers saying, oh, well, you need to have a belt in order to make more money. Well, not if you have a fan base. Ryan Garcia he doesn't need a belt. Usyk doesn't need a belt. A lot of fights, Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua aren't going to need a belt to make a boatload of cash. It's all about your fan base. And by doing what Zuffa's doing, by introducing us to these fighters, at the earlier ages, and some of these other fight cards that, has nothing to do with Zuffa, like the one I was telling you from Dublin last week. Those are the cards that you need to watch, because you will start to see quality fighters. And then nobody needs no stinking belt. That's why the sanctioning bodies should just shut up, let the fighters, go with whoever they want as far as promotional and management, and hope that, you get some good fighters to wear your belts. What else are you going to do? Because what seems to be happening now is the sanctioning bodies are picking the fighters, and whoever they can get the most money out of somehow gets in there for. I mean, look, do you know Frank Warren has the rights to all those heavyweights except for he might even have Gassiev, but he doesn't have KBL. Oh, maybe he does. I know he's got Dubois and Wardley, so it'll be interesting to see. But I can't wait to see Jay Opetaia fight. I like the fight against him and Mikaelian. I also think that if that fight does happen, and I'm sure we're going to be hearing more about it over the next few days, I think it's going to be good for the cruiserweight division. That's for sure. And you might have to see. My man Joel popped in the chat room, and he's correcting me. Yeah, I thought he had KBL. Joel's saying yes, he has KBL, but he doesn't have Gassiev. Yeah, I knew for sure he had Dubois and Wardley and KBL. What's his name threw me off. And Coach, of course. I'll post what Coach says because he's got them all listed for you here. He does. I mean, Frank Warren. Remember when Don King had all of the heavyweights? Well, Frank Warren seems to have a bunch of them too. So anyway, Floyd Mayweather's at it again. He's making the headlines. Well, the people surrounding him. So in case you forgot, there's several lawsuits against Floyd. Not to mention all of the money he owes the government, and he's trying to get some cash grabs, fighting that kickboxer, and that fell apart. He was going to fight Mike Tyson, that fell apart. Then he was going to fight Manny Pacquiao, which was probably if you have to say the word interesting, it was the most competitive fight of the other two, and it was supposed to count. So Floyd took some advance money. He backed out of the Tyson fight. Tyson got an injury. Something happened there. They're not back at the table yet. He did not fight the kickboxer or wrestler, whoever the hell it was. And the Manny Pacquiao fight has not been announced because Floyd doesn't want to potentially lose his 50-0. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. But Floyd Mayweather's business partner is now being sued by Jazz Mathur, who is the big honcho for Manny Pacquiao promotions. And Floyd Mayweather's a former business manager and his dad, Jonah Rechenitz, and his father, Robert Rechenitz, and I know I'm murdering their name, $8.3 million lawsuit. Some of the things in it, they're accusing him. The lawsuit accuses the father and son duo of orchestrating a decades-long scheme of fraud, theft, and betrayal. This is Floyd's partner. He was a convicted felon with a documented history of betrayal, fancy word for being a liar, over 10 years of deception and broken promises to, pay debts that he had, stolen things, pawning things off. This is like, a movie, right? Not having real money or real bank accounts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. $8.3 million is going. And currently, just to keep you the score right, currently Floyd himself is still got the CSI Entertainment for him backing out of some of those deals I was just talking about. And they gave him over $4.5 million up front. So tack that on. He also still has lawsuits with the jewelry and luxury goods people for over $2 million. That unpaid rent to the Baccarat Hotel for a luxury apartment he had in New York City, over $330,000 there. Child support, he doesn't even pay his child support. $1 million. How do you amass $1 million in child support? But in any event, I just want to say about Floyd real quick. His big thing is that 50-0, right? And I've always said it really that 50-0 record really pertained to the heavyweight division with Rocky Marciano. There's been no 50-0 heavyweight, but Floyd did get to 50-0. But I just want to remind you about the last couple of fights. His last, let's look in 2014, the first Marcos Medina fight. A lot of people thought he lost that fight. I thought it was pretty close. I don't think – I mean, listen, when fights are really close, I don't want to say robbery. I don't want to use the word robbery, but I think it could have legitimately been a draw. I think Floyd definitely got the nod in that first Marcos Medina fight back in 2014. He avenged it. It was one of the only two fighters that he fought twice so far. Then he fought Manny Pacquiao and beat Manny. I think that was a clear win. I mean, a lot of people somehow think that that Manny won. But what tainted that win, in my opinion, is that Manny went in there injured. That's not Floyd's problem. That's Manny's problem. And ultimately, if he couldn't perform at his best, he failed the same fans he didn't want to let down. And I've always said, hey, Floyd would have never gotten that ring if he wasn't 100%. He would have said, "Hey, I'm not 100%," and you can't fault him for that. So, Manny Pacquiao, you put an asterisk. I don't want to say, "Oh, he was injured," but he was. The Andre Berto fight was the next one. So this is fight number 49, right? He fights Andre Berto. Andre Berto, was a fighter that got his belt not by fighting his way all the way to the top. He gained a lot of experience as a champion, and then ultimately he just shot. He became shot in a sense. He went from being a highly competitive, entertaining fighter to it's over. So we got Alex in here saying Manny was not injured. That's a lie. Yes, he was injured. He had the shoulder injury. There's all kinds of proof. Please don't say it's a lie. That's true. I'm not giving him credit. I'm not saying that he would have. I'm not saying he won the fight like some of his fan base does. But in any event, the Andre Berto fight was less than stellar opposition for win number 49. And then let's not forget, fight number 50, Conor McGregor making his pro debut in boxing. I'm sorry, but that's not those last couple of fights specifically. And if you want to sprinkle in Mayweather with the bum shoulder, no, I'm just saying. But truthfully, that's 50. Now, I don't know if you remember, but Julio Cesar Chavez was 87-0 before he lost his first fight. Now Floyd retired. So, but are we counting? Are we saying, the guy deserves credit because he retired at 50-0, or is that a better feat than going 87-0 and then getting a draw and then losing? What do you think? Carlos Zarate. A lot of people forget about him, but he was 52-0. Before he lost his first fight. And there's some fighters from earlier on that, won more fights I give Floyd credit, but stop with the 50-0. That wasn't the issue, in my opinion. Anyway, coach is saying in 2017, Mayweather could have had a catchweight IBF WBC WBO fight against Crawford, but instead he took Conor McGregor. I don't ever remember them talking about him in a Crawford fight, Coach, to be honest with you. Yeah, he says already was 52-0, and then his next fight will Wilfredo Gomez. That's my point with his last two fights. I talk about cherry picking, but enough about Floyd. I got a couple of emails I want to read and comment on. This one is from the aforementioned coach. He says, "Hey, Billy C, I'm sure you're aware, but I came across a follow-up news report about that Rochester boxing card that are still unpaid. The fight took place April 25th of this year, and the main event fighter Bryce Mills is still one of the guys that didn't fight, didn't get paid. If you guys forgot about it, the whole card, and Bryce Mills is kind of a local favorite, especially in the Syracuse area. He just lost his fight at the Garden. He should have. In hindsight, Russell Peltz made a poor management decision, because he could have been the headliner that same week or the week before at the Boxing Hall of Fame, where he would have sold the place out. People love him, and still he got knocked out. But he still hasn't been paid. So that was the fight. He hasn't been paid for the fight before that, So and then he fights again, and he gets knocked out. And so obviously he got paid for that, but he hasn't gotten paid for the other one. So Coach wants to know my thoughts on it. My big question mark here is, most states, every single state that you get a promoter's license for, you got to put up a bond, and it varies for the cost. But the bond is to ensure that this doesn't happen, that the fighters get paid, venues get paid, etc. Now, the bond sometimes doesn't cover, all the expenses. But I know for a fact that the New York State Athletic Commission's bond is like the highest one. The top three I know New York is definitely top three, but the top three I would think would be New York, Nevada, and maybe Jersey. But you know what? I think Jersey works with the promoters a little better. They have a much better commissioner there in Larry Hazard. But yeah, I'm shocked that they haven't went after that bond, Coach, because it's not hard to do. And then the promoter ends up having to deal with the bond company. But everybody should have got their money, unless the commission got bounce checks or something. Then they get that bond quickly. They'd take it all first. My other one, my man Raheem is emailing us again. He says, "Hey, Billy C, it's me, Raheem. I was wondering if you could discuss who your top 5 trainers are of all time. My dad says Emmanuel Stewart is his favorite. I'd like to get your top 5. Thanks for the show." He thinks we're the best. So for all those guy that was referring to us as the media guys. Great question, and thank you for that. I agree. Listen, when I was thinking, I pre-read this and I jotted some names down just before the show, and as I'm thinking of them, and I know I'm missing guys, but I kept going. So in no particular order, these are my favorite trainers. When I think of a good trainer, these are the trainers that come to mind. So in no particular order, Manny Stewart, I mean, he's in the discussion. There's no question. What made him so special is that Manny Stewart had a knack for having the ability to take a fighter, an established fighter. And he started out with young fighters. I mean, look, Tommy Hearns, right? He had the Kronk Gym. They were all quality fighters. But, as he got to be a better and better trainer, which he did, he kept improving. He was able to take some top tier fighters and turn them into great fighters. And obviously the two names that come to mind are, of course, Lennox Lewis and Vladimir Klitschko, both guys that, Klitschko, arguably, you could make a strong case. Dax Khan always used to say on this show, you could make a strong case that the guy fought for a decade not losing a round. His problem was he was not exciting. So, you need the excitement. That's the whole point about when I was talking about exciting fighters early in the show and why they're so important. The next one I came up with was Buddy McGirt. He's a guy. You hear me talk about him a lot now. He's a guy right now that if I'm a young fighter or I'm managing a young fighter and I don't have a trainer or I have a trainer and we need to add somebody, Buddy McGirt is the guy. Of course, you got to mention Angelo Dundee. Two most famous fighters that he trained, Muhammad Ali, Sugar Ray Leonard. So you got to give him credit. Ray Arcel, Roberto Duran's trainer, one of the greatest trainers of all time. And he was in the sport for, I think, 75 years. I mean, amazing. I like Roberto Garcia. Roberto Garcia is a good trainer. Joel Diaz, he's another good trainer that, quality. They make their fighters better, guys like Diaz and Garcia. Another guy that popped into my head was Lomachenko's dad, Anatoly Lomachenko, Vasily Lomachenko's papa. I think he's a great trainer. Give him credit for what he did with Lomachenko, and I've seen him train some other fighters that also looked good. And three trainers that come to mind from yesteryear that you can't forget. First of all, Customato. And I'm not talking about Customato famously with the Mike Tyson story, but, he was also orchestrated Floyd Patterson to a heavyweight title and regaining it. And he was very successful in avoiding my man, Sonny Liston, for as long as he could. But two old-time trainers that you should keep in the conversation, and if you don't know much about these two guys, punch them up. Jack Blackburn, he was a former fighter and was most famous for being Joe Lewis's trainer. He had some really good fighters and was a great trainer. And Sugar Ray Robinson's trainer, Harry Wiley. Those are the guys that I thought of. So some of these guys that you may not have heard of, look them up. Look and see what I mean. Like these, they fought too. You see a lot of rah-rah men today that, they might be in the gym pumping iron, but they're certainly not in the squared circle. But in any event. All right, some fights I want to break down that are scheduled for this weekend that I'm going to be watching. Like I said, nothing huge. And by the way, no show next week. I meant to mention that at the beginning of the show. We are not doing a show next week, so mark that one down. The first one I'm going to talk about is a fight card that is on ESPN Saturday night. It's not the main event. It's on the undercard, but it's a fight that I'm interested in watching. It's Daniel Pero, who's a Cuban fighter, heavyweight, taking on Aleem Whitfield. Aleem Whitfield is actually from the Syracuse, Rochester, Western New York area. Aleem Whitfield is a heavyweight that's 10-1. 6 of his wins coming by knockout. His only loss was a knockout loss in the first rounds at the hands of Teramona. This fight is scheduled for 10 rounds against Pero. This will be his first 10-rounder. He's the computer ranks him at number 267 out of all the heavyweights in the world. And so obviously he's not ranked anywhere. This will be his first 10-round fight. He's gone 6 rounds once. He's 36 years old. He's 6 foot tall, but he does possess some weight. He's usually coming in around 240 pounds. So he's not the tallest guy, but he's got some weight on him. His opposition, nobody of note. Like I said, the only name you might know is Teramona, and he got knocked out by him in the first round. His opposition combined record, 26 wins, 58 losses, and 5 draws. And this, of course, doesn't count his loss to Terramona. Now, he steps in the ring with a promising heavyweight, Daniel Perot, and Perot is ranked number 67 by the computer, nowhere else. He's 26 years old, 10 years younger, much bigger at 6'5", Cuban fighter. He's a guy that can box like all Cubans do. His two biggest wins on his resume, in my opinion, Cesar Navarro, he beat last year in May. And if you go back to the year before, July of 2024, he beat James Evans. He's fought some experienced fighters, but those two were the best. How do I see this fight going? Well, Aleem Whitfield is in there with a guy who has knocked out opposition 10 of his 13 fights. Does that mean he's a power puncher? Not necessarily. Now, Aleem was just devastated by a power puncher in the very first round. And like I said, he hasn't been in there with any stellar opposition himself. So really, I don't know if it was Terramona's outrageous power or if it was a suspect chin by Whitfield. But all said and done, I believe Whitfield is going to have to be able to work the body of Perot and hope that he catches Perot with something during the fight after he has Perot hurt by the body shots, because as is the case with most Cuban fighters, they don't like to get hit in the body. Who do I think is going to win the fight? Perot. I think Perot is just too talented of a fighter. He is going to stay away. He's going to outbox, and he probably gets a stoppage win. I don't see it going the full 10 rounds. I'm picking Perot in that fight. Now, remember, that's the undercard on the ESPN fight. That's Saturday night. Also Saturday night, it's Saturday nights for fighting, right? There's a pretty decent fight. It's a rematch between Callum Simpson going up against Troy Williamson. Now, this is in the super middleweight division. Callum Simpson is 18-1 with 13 of his wins coming by knockout. His only loss was a knockout loss in his last fight against Troy Williamson. Took place in December of last year. He was stopped in the 10th round. The computer ranks him at number 26. WBC has him at number 14. He's not ranked anywhere else. 29 years old. His best fights, his best wins, his top three in 2025 in January, he beat Steve Woodall, who was a decent fighter, stopped him. He stopped Elvis Hakura in February of the same year, 2025. And also in 2025, he stopped Ivan Zuko. Then he fought Troy Williamson and lost. So this is the rematch there. So, but aside from the Troy Williamson fight, he was coming off of some pretty good knockout performances. Troy Williamson, on the other hand, he's got a record of 22 wins, 4 losses, and a draw. Of his 22 wins, 16 came by knockout. His 4 losses, in which, by the way, he was never stopped. Check out who he's lost to. In 2022, he lost to Josh Kelly. That's not to be too ashamed of. He lost to Karaman Agarago, who just recently fought in 2023. He lost to Ishmael Davis in 2024, and he lost to J.A. Tucker last year. So, he's lost, but he's gone the distance with these guys. So he's a decent fighter. Computer ranks him at number 24. The WBC has him at number 9. The IBF has him at number 11. The WBO has him at number 13. He's not rated by the WBA, the ESPN Mag, or the Ring Mag, and the IBO computer has him at number 22. He's 34 years old. He's an orthodox fighter at 5 foot 11 inches tall. As far as total rounds, he's got 179 rounds. Almost 90 rounds more experience than Simpson. Callum Simpson was a highly regarded fighter going into his fight with Troy Williamson. Who do I think is better? This is a real pick 'em fight, to be honest with you. I wouldn't be surprised if we end up seeing a trilogy here with Simpson winning this one. Their knockout ratio is almost identical. This is a tough one. Do I go with the younger fighter in Simpson? I'm back and forth. I hadn't picked who I thought was going to win this fight. So I tell you, I think I want to make it interesting. I'm going to go with Callum Simpson. I think he avenges his loss. Troy Williamson obviously has a chin, so maybe he fights him a little differently. So I'm picking Simpson in riding the ship in that rematch on Saturday on DAZN. Also on Saturday, we got a couple of good fights that my favorite new promoter, Zuffa Boxing's doing. It's going to be available on Paramount. And yes, I said Saturday, not Sunday. I hope he continues doing this. Here's the thing. The fight is in the middleweight division. I love the middleweight division. Excuse me. Tyler Denny is the computer ranks him at number 54. He's not rated anywhere else. IBO, ironically enough, has him 10 spots higher at number 44. 35 years old, southpaw fighter, 5'10". His record: 21 wins, 4 losses where he was stopped twice, and 3 draws. And of his 21 wins, 1, you heard it right, 1 knockout. Now, his losses came at the hands of decent fighters, good fighters. Reese Cartwright back in 2018, he lost by a stoppage. He lost a close majority decision against Linus Udafa in 2019. He got stopped by Hamaz Shiraz in 2024, and his last fight was a unanimous decision loss against George Ladard, who's a really good he's an exciting fighter. A couple of weeks ago, I was talking about him. So Tyler Denny has been in there. He steps in with Callum Walsh. Callum Walsh is the computer ranks him at number 5. The IBF has him at number 7. The WBC has him at number 12. The WBO has him at number 13. He's not ranked anywhere in the WBA, ESPN, or the Ring. And the IBO computer has him at number 3. 16-0 with 11 knockouts, 25 years old. This guy is a southpaw, 5'9", 71-inch reach, very similar in height, size, 2 southpaws. That's always interesting to see because southpaws are used to fighting right-handers, even though orthodox fighters aren't used to fighting southpaws. You know what I mean? It's rare when you see 2 southpaws. Callum Walsh has some pretty decent wins. He stopped Prezmez Ronowski back in 2024. He also stopped Dean Sutherland in 2025. He won a unanimous decision against Fernando Vargas in September of last year, and earlier this year in January, he won a unanimous decision over the experienced and highly talented Carlos Ocampo. I like Callum Walsh. I think he's a young fighter. I think he learned a lot in the Carlos Ocampo fight, and the Fernando Vargas fight was a tough one for him too. Tyler Denny is a good boxer. I've seen him fight several times. He's a good boxer. He comes to fight. He'll be in shape. He just doesn't have enough pop, and I think he's going to make it interesting. It'll be interesting to me to see how Callum Walsh handles such a slick boxer. But I'm picking Callum Walsh in this one, and I think he catches up with Tyler Denny. We got the last fight is a pretty decent one. This one also is on the Zuffa card on Paramount. And we got Aaron McKenna going up against Intosa Olaha from Italy. Aaron McKenna, he hasn't fought in over a year. His last fight was in 2025. So he's not ranked by the computer, or is he ranked by the WBC, WBA, or ESPN. He is ranked number 3 by the IBF, and he is ranked number 6 by the Ring magazine. Middleweight division again, like I said, he's 6'1" with a 75-inch reach. He does have a pretty impressive win on his record of his 20-0 undefeated record. He beat Liam Smith back in April of 2025. To me, that was a big win. And he's got some wins over the normal climb into the top type fighters, especially on the other side of the pond. Quality fighters, that fight other quality fighters. So they have some losses, but Aaron McKenna is the real deal. He steps in with Olaha. Olaha, the computer ranks him at number 16. The IBF has him at number 2. He's not ranked by the WBC, WBO, WBA, or ESPN. The Ring does have him at number 5, and the IBO has him at number 15. He's 28 years old, fights out of Italy. He was born in Italy, so he's a paisan, obviously. 6'1". He's a decent fighter. He's not a knockout puncher. He's got 3 wins of note that I'll mention. Julio Alamos, Fatan, who he beat in 2023, also 2023. Fatan Vukashanov beat him in November of 23. And September of 24, Alexander Pavlov, he stopped. So he's got some decent wins. Who's going to win? See, this is another tough one to pick. And again, it's like I told you so with the Zuffa boxing cards. You got 2 fights that I'm talking about right now that are, in my opinion, 50-50. Aaron McKenna is a really quality fighter, but how can I go against the paisan? I just can't. I'm sorry. I'm going with Intenosa Olaha. So those are my picks for the weekend. Paramount, DAZN, and ESPN. Coach is saying Southpaw's great fight. Prince Hameen against Kevin Kelly. Kevin Kelly, if we ever start doing the blast again, like I said I wanted to, Kevin Kelly's a guy to talk about, especially anybody listening from the New York scene. I would recommend that you try to go back and watch some of his fights. So that's my opinion there. He was a real good fighter, known for New York. All right, that's it for today's show, boys and girls. Remember, next week we are not doing a show. We'll be back the following week. So make sure you tune in the same bat time, same bat channel. Not next week, the week after. Until then, I'll leave you with this. Ciao, baby.